My name is Rebecca Mitchell, 27 years old, and I never thought a text message could shatter my world. I still remember staring at my phone during lunch break, reading those words from my mother. Annual Mother's Day dinner this Sunday at 6 p.m. For successful children only. Rebecca, as a factory worker, you're clearly not included. Until you find a proper career, consider yourself disowned. My hands trembled as my coworkers laughed nearby, unaware that my family had just thrown me away like garbage. What happened next changed everything. Before I continue this emotional journey, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories about family, rejection, and finding your own path to success. Growing up in Brookline, an affluent Boston suburb, meant living in a world where appearances mattered more than reality. Our 4-bedroom colonial with its manicured lawn was the perfect backdrop for my mother Deborah's carefully crafted image. A real estate agent with a knack for selling luxury properties, she measured human worth by square footage and zip codes. Designer clothes, luxury cars, and knowing the right people were her currencies of choice. My father Thomas, a corporate lawyer specializing in mergers and acquisitions, was physically present but emotionally vacant. He worked 70-hour weeks, disappearing into his home office on weekends, emerging mainly to critique our academic performance or to attend networking events where he could parade his successful family around like trophies. Rebecca, sit up straight. No one respects a woman with poor posture, my mother would whisper harshly at these functions, pinching my arm when I failed to smile convincingly enough at her friends. My siblings mastered the family game early. Nathan, 3 years my senior, sailed through pre-med at Harvard and into a prestigious surgical residency. Amanda, just 18 months older than me, graduated top of her class from Boston University Law School. Both played their parts flawlessly, Nathan the brilliant doctor saving lives, Amanda the sharp-minded attorney fighting corporate battles. Our family dinners were performance evaluations disguised as meals. Nathan received another commendation from the chief of surgery today, my mother would announce, serving organic roasted vegetables with locally sourced protein. And Amanda's firm is considering her for junior partner already. Isn't that remarkable? Then all eyes would turn to me, waiting for my contribution to the family honor roll. When my accomplishments failed to meet the standard, which was almost always a me, mother's smile would tighten. Well, Rebecca is trying her best, I suppose. From childhood, I gravitated toward making things. While Amanda organized her dolls into mock courtroom scenarios, I built elaborate structures with blocks and Legos. When Nathan memorized anatomy charts, I dismantled old radios to understand their inner workings. I found joy in creating tangible objects, in understanding how things functioned. This phase needs to end, my mother declared when I joined robotics club instead of debate team in high school. Tinkering with machines isn't going to get you anywhere in life, Rebecca. It's cute now, but soon it will just be embarrassing. Despite maintaining solid B+ grades and scoring well on my SATs, college application season became a battleground. I wanted to apply to technical programs, perhaps engineering or industrial design. Absolutely not, my father stated flatly during a tense dinner discussion. The Mitchell family doesn't produce mechanics. We're professionals. You'll study business like Amanda did before law school. To keep the peace, I enrolled in Boston University's business program, following my sister's footsteps as expected. For 2.5 years, I tried to mold myself into their vision. I joined the right clubs, dated a pre-law student my mother approved of, and maintained the GPA necessary to avoid criticism. But inside, I was crumbling. Panic attacks became routine before exams. I lost weight as stress destroyed my appetite. Sleep evaded me as I stared at textbooks filled with concepts that failed to ignite any passion. During junior year, I found myself sitting in Marketing Strategy 301, listening to a lecture about manipulating consumer behavior when something inside me simply broke. The professor was explaining how to make people feel inadequate so they would buy products they didn't need, and suddenly all I could hear was my mother's voice using those exact same techniques on me for 20 years. That afternoon, instead of attending my financial analysis class, I walked to the registrar's office and filed withdrawal papers. I called my father's office afterward, my voice surprisingly steady. "I've left the business program," I said when he finally came to the phone. His response was immediate. "Fix this mistake immediately or your tuition payments stop tomorrow." "That's fair," I replied, surprising us both with my calmness. "Thank you for supporting me this far." That evening, as I packed my apartment, ignoring dozens of increasingly frantic texts from my mother, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. The classified ad was simple: assembly technicians needed. Medical device manufacturer. Will train. High school diploma required. Nothing about it screamed career opportunity, but something in those plain words called to me. 2 days after withdrawing from college, I sat in the sterile lobby of Precision Medical Technologies, filling out an application with shaking hands. Carol, the HR manager, raised her eyebrows when she saw Boston University on my education history. "You're a bit overqualified, don't you think?" "I'm not qualified at all," I answered honestly. "I've never made anything that matters. I'd like to learn." Something in my response must have resonated because she hired me that afternoon. The starting salary was less than a third of what my expected post-graduation income would have been, a fact my mother emphasized repeatedly during the screaming match that ensued when I moved out of my university apartment and into a tiny studio in Somerville. "A factory worker? Have you lost your mind completely?" she hissed, looking around my new neighborhood with undisguised horror. "What am I supposed to tell people about what you do?" "Tell them I'm figuring things out," I suggested. "Figure things out at a decent internship. Not assembling. Whatever it is you're making in that factory." "Coronary stents," I said. "Devices that keep arteries open. They save lives." She left without helping me unpack. My first day on the production floor was overwhelming. The facility was nothing like the dirty, chaotic factory my parents had envisioned. It was immaculate, with workers in clean room garments operating precision equipment that created medical devices measured in millimeters. Maria, my trainer, had worked at Precision Medical for 15 years. She had no college education, but possessed an intuitive understanding of the assembly process that no textbook could teach. "These little things," she said, holding up a nearly microscopic stent, "they go inside someone's heart. Make a mistake, they could die. Do it right, they get to see their grandkids grow up. That's why we're here." The weight of that responsibility terrified and exhilarated me. For the first time, my work had immediate, tangible consequences. It mattered in a way marketing strategies and stock portfolios never had. The learning curve was steep. My fingers fumbled with the delicate components. I made mistakes that cost the company money. But unlike the academic world where errors meant shame and parental disappointment, here they were treated as essential parts of mastery. "You think any of us got it perfect the first time?" laughed Jack, a former auto mechanic who now calibrated laser cutting equipment. "Only way to learn is to mess up sometimes." My coworkers came from backgrounds my parents would have dismissed. Maria had immigrated from Guatemala with a 6th grade education. Darnell had served prison time before finding stability at Precision. Sophia was a single mother working overtime to support 3 children. Yet they welcomed me without judgment, teaching me skills with patience and genuine interest in my success. 6 months into my new job, I received my first performance review. "You've got a natural aptitude for this work," my supervisor noted. "And your attention to detail is exceptional. We'd like to train you on some of the more advanced assembly stations." That evening, I called my brother Nathan, hoping to share my small victory. "That's great, Becca," he said, the awkward pause speaking volumes. "Mom's telling everyone you're taking a gap year to find yourself before grad school." "I've found myself," I replied. "I'm just not who she wanted me to be." The family's embarrassment evolved into a concentrated campaign to save me from my chosen path. My father offered to pay for an MBA at any school I could get into. Amanda sent me job listings for executive assistant positions at her firm. My mother alternated between tearful pleas about wasting my potential and cold fury at my stubborn defiance. "You're breaking your mother's heart," my father said during one of his rare calls. "She can't even look at her friends anymore without feeling ashamed." Their pressure might have worked months earlier, but something had changed. With each component I assembled, each skill I mastered, my confidence grew. I began to recognize my own value separate from the family metrics of prestige and income. After a year on the production floor, I was promoted to team lead, supervising a small group of newer employees. My salary increased, and while still modest by my family's standards, it covered my expenses and even allowed small luxuries. More importantly, the fog of anxiety that had followed me throughout college lifted. I slept soundly, woke eager for work, and found myself smiling without effort. The depression that had been my constant companion through years of trying to become someone I wasn't gradually receded. "You seem different," Maria commented one day as we calibrated equipment together. "When you started, you looked scared all the time. Now you look strong." Strong. The word settled comfortably in my chest. I was becoming strong in my convictions, in my skills, in my independence from my family's approval. As my confidence grew, my contact with my family diminished. Holiday gatherings became exercises in tension, with my parents introducing me vaguely as still exploring her options while quickly changing the subject. My achievements at work solving production problems, improving efficiency, earning the respect of colleagues held no currency in their world. "Still at that factory" became my mother's standard greeting, her tone suggesting I was announcing a terminal illness rather than continued employment. "Still saving lives," I would answer, which inevitably ended the conversation. By my second year at Precision Medical, I rarely spoke to my parents except for obligatory birthday calls and major holidays. Nathan and Amanda maintained more regular contact, though our conversations carried an undercurrent of discomfort, as if my career choice had created a language barrier between us. I was learning to accept this new normal when Mother's Day approached, bringing with it the annual family celebration that would change everything. May 8th began like any other workday. I arrived at the factory by 6:30 a.m., changed into my cleanroom gear, and took my position at the quality control station. Spring sunshine streamed through the high windows of the production floor, glinting off the stainless steel equipment. I had been at Precision Medical for nearly 3 years now, and the familiar rhythm of the assembly line had become almost meditative. "Morning," Rebecca called Darnell as he checked the calibration logs. "Ready for another exciting day of saving the world, one tiny stent at a time." I smiled at our running joke. Someone's got to do it. The morning passed quickly. We were working on a rush order for a new hospital client, and the entire team maintained focused concentration as tiny medical components moved through our workstations. By noon, we were ahead of schedule, and I felt the satisfaction that came with efficient, purposeful work. "Taking lunch?" asked Sophia as she removed her safety goggles. I nodded, peeling off my gloves. "I brought leftover pasta. Want to eat outside? Weather's finally nice." In the employee break area, a concrete patio with picnic tables behind the facility, I pulled out my phone to check messages while unpacking my lunch. Several work emails, a text from my landlord about renewing my lease, and a notification from the family group chat that I rarely checked anymore. Taking a bite of pasta, I opened the group message, expecting the usual updates about Nathan's medical practice or Amanda's legal victories. Instead, I found myself staring at words that made my fork clatter to the table. Annual Mother's Day dinner this Sunday at 6 p.m. For successful children only. Rebecca, as a factory worker, you're clearly not included. Until you find a proper career, consider yourself disowned. The message had been sent by my mother at 11:42 a.m., just 18 minutes earlier. As I stared at the screen, new messages appeared. Amanda, Mom, that's a bit harsh. Nathan, maybe we should discuss this privately. My mother, there's nothing to discuss. I've tried patience for 3 years while Rebecca plays blue-collar worker like it's some rebellious phase. I'm done pretending this is temporary. This dinner is to celebrate MY Day with children who haven't thrown away their potential. My father's name appeared as typing several times, but no message ever came through. Blood rushed to my face, and despite the warm spring day, my hands turned ice cold. The phone screen blurred as I tried to comprehend that my mother had just publicly disowned Menet in a moment of heated argument, but in a calculated, premeditated text to the entire family. Rebecca? You okay? Sophia's voice seemed to come from far away. You're white as a sheet. I couldn't answer. My lungs felt compressed, unable to draw sufficient air. 3 years of building a new life, finding my confidence, creating value with my hands and mind all dismissed as worthless because it didn't conform to my mother's narrow definition of success. I need a minute, I managed to whisper, standing on unsteady legs. In the privacy of the employee, for a moment, I was that girl again, desperate for approval, willing to sacrifice my well-being for a nod of parental satisfaction. The urge to respond, to defend myself, to somehow earn back my place in the family overwhelmed me. I opened the text chain again. No new messages had appeared. The conversation had moved to a separate thread, one I wasn't included in. The exclusion was so deliberate, so calculated to cause maximum pain, that it momentarily took my breath away. A knock on the bathroom door startled me. Rebecca? It was Maria. Sophia said you might need someone to talk to. When I opened the door, her concerned expression crumbled whatever composure I had managed to gather. Wordlessly, I handed her my phone. She read the messages, her eyebrows rising. Your mother wrote this? On purpose. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Dios mío, she muttered. What kind of mother? She didn't finish the thought, instead pulling me into a tight hug that smelled of machine oil and the cinnamon gum she always chewed. I need to get back to work, I said when she released me, desperately needing the normalcy of the production floor. You sure? Jake would understand if you needed to go home. No, I said, finding strength in the routine that had sustained me for 3 years. I have components to inspect. People are waiting for their stunts. Maria studied me carefully. Your mother is wrong, you know. About all of it. I managed a small smile. I'm starting to believe that. The remainder of my shift passed in a blur. I performed my duties mechanically, muscle memory carrying me through inspections and documentation. My colleagues, sensing something was wrong, created a protective bubble around me, handling external communications and minimizing disruptions. By the time I clocked out at 3:30 p.m., the initial shock had given way to a hollow ache in my chest. I drove home through rush hour traffic on autopilot, my mother's words playing on repeat in my mind. Consider yourself disowned. After 3 years of conditional tolerance, the pretense had been dropped. I was officially no longer a member of the Mitchell family, at least not in my mother's eyes, because I assembled medical devices instead of shuffling papers in a prestigious office. As I climbed the stairs to my apartment, I realized that this moment had been inevitable from the day I walked out of Boston University. My family had never accepted my choice. They had merely been waiting for me to fail, to come crawling back, admitting my mistake. Instead, I had built a life that brought me satisfaction. And that, perhaps, was the true unforgivable offense. My apartment felt unusually quiet that evening. The small one-bedroom I'd furnished piece by piece over 3 years had become my sanctuary, but tonight its walls seemed to press inward. I kicked off my work shoes and sank onto the second-hand sofa I'd refinished myself, my phone heavy in my hand. The family group chat notification still glowed on my screen, a digital grenade waiting to explode. Part of meth part still seeking maternal approval wanted to respond immediately, to write a passionate defense of my choices, to demand recognition for the person I had become. Another part wanted to lash out, to enumerate every criticism my mother had ever leveled against me, to expose the hypocrisy of valuing prestige over purpose, image over authenticity. The words formed in my mind, sharp and righteous. I even typed out several responses, fingers jabbing at the screen. Congratulations on showing your true colors to everyone, Mom. Sorry my life-saving work embarrasses you. Enjoy your dinner of status and pretension. After 3 years, you still don't understand that I chose this life. It wasn't a failure, it was a victory. Each time, my finger hovered over the send button. Each time, I deleted the text instead. Past confrontations played through my memory. The screaming match when I withdrew from college, the icy Christmas dinner where my mother introduced me to family friends as between opportunities, the tearful phone call on my 25th birthday when she asked if I was ready to rejoin civilization yet. None of those confrontations had changed anything. Each had left me emotionally drained while reinforcing my family's perception of me as defiant and unreasonable. What would winning even look like? I asked my empty apartment. I couldn't force my mother to respect my choices. I couldn't make my father stand up to her on my behalf. I couldn't transform my siblings from uncomfortable bystanders into advocates. The only person whose behavior I could control was myself. Rising from the couch, I paced my small living room, the familiar process of solving a problem at work kicking in. When faced with a manufacturing issue, we first identified the desired outcome, then determined the most direct path to achieving it. What did I want? Not just a retraction of the hurtful words. Not just an apology that would inevitably be followed by more subtle manipulation. What I truly wanted was freedom from the power my family still held over my emotional well-being, from the lingering hope that someday they would see me clearly and love what they saw. The realization settled over me with surprising calmness. I didn't need to fight this battle because the victory I sought wasn't on that battlefield at all. With steady hands, I opened my phone again. Instead of a lengthy emotional response, I typed a simple message. I understand your position. I won't be attending. I wish you all a pleasant celebration. Professional. Dignified. Final. After sending it, I navigated to the group settings and quietly removed myself from the family chat. No dramatic exit announcement, no slamming of digital doors. Just a gentle closing of a chapter that no longer served me. Next, I opened my contacts and methodically adjusted settings. My parents and siblings moved from my favorites list to regular contacts. I didn't block them, that would be another form of confrontation, but I removed their special status in my digital life. My hands trembled slightly as I performed these small acts of separation, but my mind remained clear. This wasn't an impulsive reaction to hurt feelings. This was a deliberate choice to prioritize my well-being over a toxic family dynamic. The apartment no longer felt constricting. Each breath came easier than the last. I made a simple dinner, opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion, and sat at my small kitchen table with a notebook. At the top of a fresh page, I wrote next steps. By midnight, my plan had taken shape. The manufacturing skills I'd developed at Precision Medical were transferable to facilities across the country. While Boston held the comfort of familiarity, it also contained the shadows of my past life and the constant threat of painful family encounters. A clean break. A fresh start. The thought both terrified and exhilarated me. Before going to bed, I checked my phone one last time. 3 missed calls from Amanda, 2 from Nathan, and a text from my father that simply read, "Your mother is upset, but she'll calm down. Call her tomorrow." No acknowledgement of the cruelty. No recognition that a line had been crossed. Just the same expectation that I would absorb the hurt and maintain the family fiction. I set my phone to do not disturb, excluding everyone except work contacts. For the first time in years, I slept deeply and dreamlessly, uninterrupted by family expectations or my own anxiety about failing to meet them. The next morning, I requested a meeting with my supervisor before my shift began. "Jake, is Precision Medical still planning to expand the Seattle facility?" I asked after exchanging morning pleasantries. He looked surprised. "Actually, yes. They're struggling to find experienced personnel." "Why do you ask?" "I'd like to request a transfer," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'm ready for a change of scenery." 2 weeks later, after declining multiple family meetings orchestrated by my siblings and ignoring increasingly concerned messages from my father, I packed my belongings into a rented SUV. The apartment was empty except for furniture I'd sold or donated. My lease was paid through the month. My affairs in Boston were concluded. As I pulled onto the highway heading west, a sense of lightness expanded in my chest. I wasn't running away from my mother's rejection. I was moving toward a life where that rejection couldn't define me. The confrontation my family expected never came. Instead, I gave myself the gift of peace, something far more valuable than the temporary satisfaction of having the last word. The journey across America became a physical manifestation of my emotional transition. With each state line, I crossed New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Boston, and its tangled family dynamics receded in my rearview mirror. I drove with the windows down when weather permitted, letting the rushing air sweep away old thought patterns and expectations. I took my time, turning the cross-country drive into a personal pilgrimage. In Cleveland, I visited the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, something my mother would have dismissed as frivolous. In Chicago, I ate deep dish pizza at a crowded counter, engaging in conversation with strangers, an activity my socially strategic family would never have allowed. In Wyoming, I pulled over to watch the sunset paint the vast sky in colors I'd never seen in New England. With each experience, I felt myself expanding beyond the narrow confines of who I'd been raised to be. Seattle welcomed me with 3 days of continuous rain, as if testing my commitment to this new beginning. My corporate Hozinga temporary apartment provided by Precision Medical for transferred employees was sterile but comfortable, a blank canvas awaiting personalization. "Welcome to the Pacific Northwest facility," said Marcus, the production manager, during my first day orientation. "Your reputation preceded you. Boston says you're one of their best QC specialists." The validation sent a warm current through me. My work, dismissed by my family as beneath me, had earned recognition from people who understood its value. The Seattle factory was newer than Boston's, with updated equipment and a slightly different production process. The learning curve was steep but exhilarating. For the first week, I focused entirely on mastering my new workspace, grateful for the distraction from personal upheaval. Weekends proved more challenging. Without the structure of work hours, loneliness settled heavily around my shoulders. I'd left behind not just family, but the few friends I'd made in Boston: Maria, Sophia, Darnell, and others from the production floor who had become my surrogate family. On my second Saturday in Seattle, rather than succumbing to solitude in my temporary apartment, I forced myself to visit a farmer's market in a nearby neighborhood. Rain drizzled persistently as I wandered between stalls of produce, handcrafts, and prepared foods. "First time at the market?" asked a vendor as I examined handmade ceramic mugs. "Is it that obvious?" I replied with a small smile. "New to Seattle entirely, I'm guessing," she said, introducing herself as Diana. "The vitamin D deficiency hasn't fully set in yet. You're still too cheerful." Her friendly sarcasm broke through my reserve, and we chatted as I selected a blue-glazed mug that reminded me of ocean waves. By the end of our conversation, she'd invited me to a community pottery class she taught on Tuesday evenings. "Beginner's welcome," she assured me. "And it's a good way to meet people who aren't constantly talking about Amazon or Microsoft." That pottery class became my first anchor in Seattle society. My hands, skilled from years of precise manufacturing work, adapted easily to shaping clay. The meditative process of throwing pots centered me during those early weeks of adjustment, and the diverse group of students from college kids to retirees provided casual companionship without pressure. At work, I gradually built professional relationships. Lincoln, a quality engineer with an infectious laugh, took me under his wing, explaining Seattle facility protocols and introducing me to key personnel. Zoe from the research department sought my input on prototype designs, valuing my production floor perspective. Marcus invited me to join the facility's continuous improvement committee, where my suggestions for process refinements were implemented with surprising speed. 1 month turned into 3, then 6. I found a small apartment in Fremont, a quirky neighborhood with an artistic vibe that suited my evolving identity. Weekends filled with exploration, hiking in the nearby mountains, visiting local museums, trying restaurants representing cuisines I'd never experienced in Boston. Occasionally, my phone would light up with messages from my past life. Amanda sent sporadic updates, carefully neutral in tone. Nathan checked in on holidays. My father called monthly, our conversations brief and superficial. My mother remained silent. I responded politely but briefly to these communications, neither encouraging deeper connection nor severing ties completely. The geographical distance made emotional boundaries easier to maintain. When asked about my life in Seattle, I shared surface details but protected the deeper contentment I was discovering. 9 months after my arrival, Precision Medical faced a production challenge when a key supplier altered a component specification without notice. The change caused subtle defects that might have gone undetected with standard quality checks. "Something doesn't feel right about these," I said during an inspection, unable to identify the specific issue but trusting the intuition developed through thousands of hours of handling similar components. Marcus took my concerns seriously, halting production while we investigated. My hunch proved correct. The supplier's minor modification affected the component's performance under certain conditions. By catching the issue before shipping, we prevented potentially dangerous device failures. "This is why experience on the production floor matters," Marcus announced during the all-hands meeting afterward. Rebecca's expertise just saved patients from risk and our company from a potential recall. The recognition culminated in a promotion to senior quality specialist with a substantial salary increase. For the first time in my life, I was earning an income my family might actually respect, though that validation no longer drove my choices. With financial security came new opportunities. I enrolled in evening classes at a local college, pursuing a manufacturing engineering degree that complemented my practical experience. The academic environment felt different this time. I was studying from genuine interest rather than obligation, choosing courses that enhanced skills I valued rather than credentials my parents coveted. My social circle expanded organically. Diana from the pottery class introduced me to her hiking group. Lincoln and his wife included me in dinner parties where I met people from diverse professional backgrounds. I joined a community garden, sharing growing tips and harvest celebrations with neighbors. Dating entered the picture eventually. After coffee with several nice but incompatible men, I met Ryan, an elementary school teacher with a passion for woodworking, at a mutual friend's barbecue. Unlike the ambitious professionals my mother had pushed me toward in Boston, Ryan measured success by the positive impact he made on his students and the beauty he created in his workshop. "I love that you make things that matter," he said on our third date, after I explained my work creating medical devices. "That's real purpose." His simple validation, so different from my family's dismissal, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. As my second anniversary in Seattle approached, I received an email from my former supervisor in Boston. "Rebecca, we're implementing your modified inspection protocol across all facilities. Engineering estimates it will improve detection rates by 18% while reducing inspection time. Headquarters is noticing. Thought you'd want to know your impact extends beyond Seattle. Well done, Jake." That evening, I sat on my small balcony overlooking the neighborhood, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. My life bore little resemblance to the prestigious career path my parents had mapped out for me. My apartment wouldn't impress anyone seeking status markers. My social circle included no powerful connections my father would consider worthwhile. Yet I had built something authentic and satisfying, work that utilized my natural abilities, relationships based on genuine connection rather than strategic advantage, and most importantly, a growing confidence in my own judgment. The phone call from Nathan that interrupted this peaceful reflection came as a complete surprise. We hadn't spoken in nearly 3 months. "Becca," he said, his voice strained in a way I'd never heard before. "I know we haven't really talked much lately, and I'm sorry about that. But something's happened, and I think you should know." As he continued speaking, the Seattle sunset faded into darkness, and the comfortable life I'd constructed seemed suddenly fragile against the winds blowing in from my past. 3 years had transformed Seattle from an escape route into home. My apartment in Fremont, once sparse and temporary feeling, now reflected my evolving identity. Bookshelves held engineering textbooks alongside pottery I'd made in Diana's class. The walls displayed framed photographs of Mount Rainier, the Olympic Peninsula, and other Pacific Northwest landscapes I'd explored. A certificate of completion for my manufacturing engineering program hung beside my desk. Professional growth had paralleled my personal development. The promotion to senior quality specialist had been followed by another to manufacturing engineer after completing my technical education. I now split my time between the production floor, where my hands-on experience proved invaluable, and the engineering department, where I helped design more efficient production processes. My most significant contribution had been developing a modified testing protocol that reduced inspection time while improving defect detection. The innovation had been implemented not just in Seattle, but across all precision medical facilities, saving the company millions annually while ensuring product safety. This success had caught the attention of industry publications. Manufacturing Monthly had featured me in their Innovators Under 30 section, highlighting my unconventional career path from college dropout to respected manufacturing engineer. The article included a photo of me on the production floor, safety glasses pushed up into my hair as I explained a process to colleagues. I'd sent polite no-comment responses to the few journalists who had tried to dig into my family background, protecting both my privacy and my tenuous peace with the Mitchells. But privately, I'd allowed myself a moment of satisfaction, imagining the article crossing my mother's radar. Ryan and I had moved in together 6 months earlier, combining his collection of handcrafted furniture with my growing array of ceramics in a larger apartment with a view of the canal. Our relationship had deepened into a partnership built on mutual respect and genuine admiration for each other's work, his shaping young minds and creating beautiful wooden objects, mine designing medical devices that saved lives. Life had settled into a rhythm that felt both secure and dynamic, with new challenges at work balanced by weekend adventures exploring the Pacific Northwest. The pain of my family's rejection had dulled to an occasional ache rather than the constant wound it had once been. Then came Nathan's call, shattering the careful boundaries I'd constructed between my past and present. "Mitchell Investments is under federal investigation," he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "Dad and Mom are facing potential charges for securities fraud and tax evasion." The information hit like a physical blow, sending me to the edge of my sofa. "What? Since when does Mom run an investment firm?" "Since about 2 years ago," Nathan explained. "After you left, she decided to prove her business acumen by starting a family investment company. Used her real estate connections to bring in clients. Dad helped with the legal structure." My mind raced to process this unexpected information, and they were committing fraud. "The investigation is ongoing, but it looks bad." They were promising guaranteed returns, moving money between accounts to create the appearance of profits, using new investor money to pay earlier investors. "A Ponzi scheme," I said flatly. "Our parents were running a Ponzi scheme." "Essentially, yes." Nathan's voice cracked slightly. They've lost everything, Becca. The house is being seized. Their accounts are frozen. Dad's law firm has suspended him pending investigation. Mom's real estate license is under review. A complex wave of emotions washed over Meshach, disbelief, a surprising lack of satisfaction at their downfall. Despite everything, I had never wished actual destruction upon my parents. Why are you telling me this? I asked, struggling to identify my role in this crisis. Nathan hesitated. 2 reasons. First, Amanda and I thought you should hear it from family, not the news. It's going to break publicly any day now. And second, Mom wants to talk to you. A harsh laugh escaped me before I could suppress it. Of course she has. I know it's rich, Nathan admitted, surprising me with his candor. Amanda and I have had our own reckonings with her since all this happened. We've realized how toxic her value system was. But she's still our mother, and she's facing potential prison time. The old Rebecca might have jumped at this opportunity for reconciliation or revenge. The woman-eyed become approached it more cautiously. What exactly does she want from me? To reconnect, she says. Though honestly, I think she also hopes your stability might somehow help their situation. You're the only one of us not financially entangled with them. The irony wasn't lost on me. My embarrassing factory job and modest lifestyle had protected me from the financial house of cards my status-obsessed family had built. The daughter they had disowned for lacking ambition was now the only Mitchell standing on solid ground. I need to think about this, I told Nathan. I'll call you back tomorrow. After ending the call, I sat motionless, trying to process this seismic shift in family dynamics. Ryan found me there an hour later when he returned from his woodworking studio. What happened? He asked, immediately sensing my distress. I explained the situation in halting sentences, still struggling to believe it myself. And now they want to reconnect, I concluded. After 3 years of silence. After a text message disowning me. Ryan sat beside me, his presence steady and comforting. What do you want to do? That's the question, isn't it? I leaned against his shoulder. Part of me wants to ignore them, completely give them a taste of their own medicine. Another part recognizes they're still my family, despite everything. You don't have to decide tonight, he reminded me gently. And whatever you choose, I'm with you. Sleep eluded me that night as memories and possibilities churned through my mind. By morning, clarity had emerged, not from emotional reaction but from the same analytical thinking that served me in solving manufacturing problems. I called Nathan as promised. I'll meet with them, I said when he answered. But on my terms, not theirs. The following weekend, I flew to Boston alone, having declined Nathan's offer to meet me at the airport. I needed this boundary-setting journey to be independent from start to finish. The city felt simultaneously familiar and foreign as my rental car navigated streets I once knew intimately. 3 years had changed Boston little, but my perspective had transformed entirely. We met at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant in Cambridge, far from both our old family neighborhood and my former apartment. I arrived first, selecting a corner table that offered privacy without feeling trapped. My parents entered together, and the physical change in them was shocking. My father's confident posture had collapsed into a stooped shuffle. My mother, always immaculately presented, wore minimal makeup that failed to disguise the stress lines etched around her mouth and eyes. Both had aged a decade in 3 years. Nathan and Amanda flanked them like protective escorts, their expressions a mixture of discomfort and relief at seeing me. I stood as they approached, accepting brief, awkward hugs from my siblings while offering my parents only a nod. Rebecca, my mother, breathed, reaching for my hands across the table once we were seated. You look wonderful. I allowed the brief contact before withdrawing my hands to my lap. Thank you for agreeing to meet, I replied, my tone professional rather than warm. An uncomfortable silence descended until my father cleared his throat. Your brother mentioned you're doing well in Seattle. Engineering now, I understand. Manufacturing engineering, I confirmed. I completed the program last year while working full-time. Always the determined one, he said with a weak attempt at fatherly pride. My mother leaned forward, her designer bracelet presumably one of the few valuable possessions not yet seized sliding down her wrist. "We've followed your career, Rebecca. That article was quite impressive. I always knew you had potential." The revisionist history might have enraged me once. Now it merely highlighted how desperately she needed to maintain her self-image, even as it crumbled around her. "Let's be direct," I suggested, glancing at each family member in turn. "Nathan told me about the investment scheme and the legal troubles you're facing. I'm sorry you're in this situation, but I'm unclear about why you wanted to see me after 3 years of minimal contact." My bluntness visibly startled my mother, who had clearly expected either hostile recrimination or eager reconciliation, not this calm, measured approach. "We're family," she said, as if that explained everything. Families should come together in difficult times. "Like Mother's Day celebrations?" I asked mildly. "For successful children only." My father winced. Amanda studied her water glass intently. Nathan met my eyes with unexpected understanding. "I made mistakes," my mother admitted, tears forming. "I was wrong about so many things, Rebecca. Your work is meaningful in ways I didn't understand. You save lives while we've been chasing status and money." The apology seemed genuine, which surprised me. But it also came at a suspiciously convenient moment when their definition of success had imploded and mine stood strong. "I appreciate that recognition," I said carefully. "But I need to understand what you're hoping for from me now." My father answered, his lawyer's precision momentarily reasserting itself. "We face significant legal and financial challenges. Most of our assets are frozen or seized. We may need help with living expenses and legal fees while this proceeds." "So this is about money," I clarified. "It's about family," my mother insisted. "Family works both ways," I replied. "It can't be conditional on conformity or convenience." What followed was a 3-hour conversation that excavated years of family dysfunction. My parents detailed their legal situation, which was indeed dire. My father faced potential disbarment in addition to criminal charges. My mother's real estate empire had collapsed, leaving angry clients demanding restitution. Their social circle had evaporated as former friends distanced themselves from the scandal. Behind their immediate crisis lay a deeper revelation. The prestigious lifestyle that had been held up as the Mitchell family standard had been partially built on financial deception for years. My father's legal income had been supplemented with increasingly questionable investments. My mother's real estate success had involved shortcuts that skirted ethical boundaries. "We were terrified of losing status," my father admitted in a rare moment of self-reflection. "When you rejected the path we'd laid out, it threatened the whole facade. If one of our children could walk away from what we valued, maybe what we valued wasn't so important after all." "So you disowned me instead of questioning your values," I said, not as an accusation but as a statement of fact. "Yes," my mother whispered, unable to meet my eyes. "It was easier to cut you off than to face our own doubts." As the restaurant emptied around us, we reached the inevitable question of what happened next. "I won't pretend the past 3 years didn't happen," I told them firmly. "And I won't sacrifice the life I've built to rescue you from consequences you created. But I don't want to see you destitute either." I outlined what I was willing to offer: financial assistance with basic living expenses while their case proceeded, help finding modest housing, and connecting them with a reputable lawyer who owed me a favor from my Boston days. What I wouldn't provide was emotional absolution or a return to previous family dynamics. "This is a business arrangement," I explained, "not an eraser for past behavior. Any future relationship will need to be built slowly, with new boundaries and mutual respect." My mother appeared ready to protest these terms, but my father placed a restraining hand on her arm. "We understand," he said, "and we're grateful for any help you're willing to provide." As we prepared to leave, Nathan pulled me aside. "You've changed," he observed. "In good ways." Manufacturing precision, I replied with a small smile. It teaches you to see things clearly and solve problems methodically. I wish I'd supported you more when you chose that path, he admitted. I was afraid of standing against Mom and Dad. We were all trying to survive in the environment they created, I said, finding forgiveness easier than expected. But we get to choose what happens next. Driving back to my hotel that night, I felt neither the vindication nor the rekindled family warmth that might once have seemed like the only possible outcomes of such a meeting. Instead, I experienced something more valuable, the quiet confidence of having engaged with my past from a position of strength rather than reactivity. The family that had once disowned me now looked to me for stability, not because I had followed their prescribed path to success, but precisely because I had rejected it in favor of building something authentic and sustainable. The irony wasn't lost on me, but neither was it the point. The true victory wasn't in role reversal, but in the person I had become while they weren't watching. The reconciliation process with my family unfolded gradually over the following year, each step deliberate and measured. True to my word, I helped my parents find a modest apartment in a middle-class Boston neighborhood, a dramatic downgrade from their seized colonial but clean, safe, and within their drastically reduced means. Monthly transfers covered their basic expenses while legal proceedings continued. The case ultimately ended in a plea agreement. My father received probation and community service rather than prison time, largely due to his cooperation with authorities and the skilled representation of the attorney I'd connected them with. My mother avoided criminal charges, but faced substantial civil penalties that would follow them for years. Our first family gathering in my new role as stable provider rather than disappointment occurred 6 months after our Cambridge restaurant meeting. I invited them to Seattle, wanting them to see my life rather than attempting to reinsert myself into the Boston world they still clung to despite its collapse. "This is lovely," my mother said as she toured the apartment I shared with Ryan, her tone suggesting surprise that a life without luxury brands and status markers could indeed be lovely. "You sound shocked," I replied, not unkindly. "I am," she admitted with unexpected honesty. "I spent decades believing happiness required certain things: the right address, impressive career titles, social connections. Your home feels happy without any of that." "Because it's authentic," Ryan observed, joining the conversation. "Everything here represents who Rebecca actually is, not who someone else thinks she should be." My mother studied him with new interest. In the past, she would have immediately categorized him public school teacher, modestly paid, no family connections worth mentioning, and dismissed him as unsuitable. Now she seemed to be seeing beyond those surface metrics. "You build beautiful furniture," she said. "4th grade," he confirmed. "Going on 8 years now." "That must be rewarding," she offered, testing this new value system where reward wasn't measured solely in dollars or prestige. "Every day," he agreed, though some days more obviously than others. Over dinner that evening, prepared in our kitchen rather than at an expensive restaurant, my father asked about my work with surprising engagement. "Nathan mentioned you've patented some manufacturing process," he inquired. "A modified inspection protocol," I explained, automatically simplifying the technical aspects as I'd grown accustomed to doing with non-engineers. "It reduces the time needed to verify product quality while actually improving detection rates." "Don't dumb it down for us," my father said, catching me off guard. "We should understand what you do, even if it takes some effort on our part." So I explained the technical aspects more thoroughly, drawing diagrams on napkins and using salt and pepper shakers to demonstrate key concepts. My parents listened with genuine attention, asking relevant questions that showed they were truly trying to comprehend my world. "You know," my father said thoughtfully as I concluded, "I spent 30 years in corporate law and never created anything that directly helped people. These devices you make, they save lives." "They do," I agreed. "That's why I love manufacturing. At the end of each day, there's a tangible result that matters." "I wish I had understood that sooner," he said quietly. Later that night, After my parents had returned to their hotel and Ryan had gone to bed, I sat alone on our small balcony, reflecting on the subtle shift in family dynamics. The complete healing of old wounds might never be possible, but something new was emerging, a relationship based on who we actually were rather than who we pretended to be. Our contact remained limited but more authentic after that visit. Monthly video calls replaced perfunctory text messages. When I called with news of my engagement to Ryan, my mother's congratulations came without the barely concealed disappointment that would once have accompanied my choice of partner. "He makes you happy," she said simply. "I can see that now." The most profound change came the following spring when I received an unexpected email from my mother. "Rebecca, I'm volunteering with a program that helps women re-enter the workforce after incarceration. Many of them are interested in manufacturing jobs like yours, stable work that doesn't require extensive education but rewards reliability and attention to detail. Would you be willing to speak to our group about your career path? They need to hear from someone who found dignity and purpose in work that society often undervalues." The irony of my mother now promoting manufacturing careers might have been amusing if it weren't so meaningful. Her value system hadn't merely been adjusted by circumstance, it had been fundamentally reconstructed. 2 years after the text message that had once shattered my world, I hosted a different kind of family gathering in Seattle. Nathan and his wife flew in from Boston. Amanda came from New York, where she now worked for a nonprofit legal aid organization, and my parents arrived from their modest apartment, having gradually adapted to their new financial reality. The occasion was simply housewarming for the small craftsman home Ryan and I had purchased in a family-friendly neighborhood not far from his school. The down payment had come partially from the bonus I'd received for my latest manufacturing innovation, a detail my mother pointed out to dinner guests with genuine pride. As we gathered around our dining table built by Ryan from locally sourced wood, I looked at the faces of my family members, each transformed in different ways by the collapse of our old hierarchies. Nathan had left his prestigious surgical practice to work at a community health center, finding greater satisfaction in helping underserved populations. Amanda had abandoned corporate law for public interest work. My parents, stripped of wealth and status, were slowly discovering purpose in community service and simpler pleasures. "I'd like to propose a toast," my father said, raising his glass. "To Rebecca, who knew what was important long before the rest of us figured it out. And to second chances," my mother added softly. "At building a family based on who we are, not what we own or do." As glasses clinked around the table, I felt the final pieces of an old wound healing. The text message that had once cast me out had ultimately freed me to build a life of authenticity. The family that had rejected me had been forced to confront the emptiness of their values. And in that confrontation, they had found their way to something more meaningful, just as I had when I walked away from their expectations years earlier. Success, I had learned, wasn't measured by comparison to others or by accumulation of status markers. It came from aligning your outer life with your inner values, from creating rather than consuming, from connections based on authenticity rather than advantage. As the evening wound down and conversations flowed around me, I caught Ryan's eye across the room. His smile reflected the peace I felt, not the triumph of having proven my family wrong, but the quiet satisfaction of having proven myself right. The journey from rejected daughter to family anchor had been painful and unexpected, but standing in the home we had created, surrounded by people now striving for genuine connection rather than superficial impression, I recognized that sometimes being cast out is the first step toward finding your way home to yourself. Have you ever had to redefine success on your own terms? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey of finding authentic purpose resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that their unconventional path has value too. Remember, true success isn't measured by others' expectations, but by the courage to build a life that reflects your own values. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you the strength to follow your own authentic path, wherever it may lead.